The original plan for the technique guide when it came to covering the absorptions was to do one video about Majin Buu and Cell's absorption, and maybe later on cover Moro as well when we get more information. If we do get more information, I chose to instead separate the videos because there's a lot of interesting tidbits and backstory behind Cell and even Majin Buu's absorptions. So on this video, on this edition of the technique guide that is, we're going to be going into Cell's absorption ability because it's very interesting how when you break it down, it was sort of his destiny, his purpose, but really his fate to become perfect. Let's talk about it. When Cell was first introduced, he was played up to be a big mystery, and it's really one of my favorite aspects of the Cell saga, his introduction. We see Kami discussing how he senses a weird evil in the air. Then we find, of course, the egg and, the time machine and all these mysteries kind of unraveling one by one until finally Piccolo, after fusing with Kami or absorbing Kami, which we discussed in the previous technique guide, meets up with Cell, and we finally find out who he is. Now, of course, Cell's mystery kind of dies right away when he kind of reveals his entire plan and the whole backstory and what he planned to do. But what's interesting about this is we find out very early on that Cell has this strange sort of absorption ability, which is really part of his master plan, his prime directive, and his mission, which was to become perfect. Cell, unlike androids 17 and 18, was not originally a human, nor is he a complete mechanical artificial creation like 16 and 19 were. No, Cell is something different. Cell is a biomechanical hybrid creation, biogenetically, so to speak. So that kind of makes him a test tube baby, created, of course, by Dr. Garo, known as Dr. Gero in the dub. Now, what makes his absorption interesting is that, obviously, as he absorbs people, which we literally witness in the series in one of the most disgusting and repulsive scenes, in some ways horrifying, in Dragon Ball Z, it's not until we find out that his true directive is to absorb 17 and 18. So the first time that we see Cell absorbing anybody would be chapter 361 of the manga. Now, if we go to Daizenshu 4, the Dragon Ball guidebook, page 62, it says the following. It says, a technique where you absorb particular beings, making them into your own power. The first person to use this technique was First Form Cell. At that time, Cell powered up by absorbing the life energy of Ginger Town citizens. In Cell's case, he absorbs people's energy throughout the needle-like portion at the end of his tail. Now, this would, of course, go on to talk about Majin Buu's absorption, but I'm saving that for a separate video. So Cell has to at least be partially human or partially mortal based on the fact that he was genetically manufactured in a laboratory with the cells of the fighters like Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, etc. Because we never really see Cell absorbing animals. We don't see Chupacabra Cell sucking up some cow in the middle of nowhere, some cattle. No, he's only absorbing humans, and then eventually, of course, 17 and 18, and he absorbs enough to increase power because every human has ki inside of them, but of course, their ki is not on the level of like a Goku or a fighter. But when it comes to 17 and 18, there's something special there because as Imperfect Cell absorbs humans, he doesn't really physically change, even though he gets stronger. However, with each subsequent absorption, 17 first, then 18, we have Cell physically changing into second form Cell, and then finally Perfect Cell when he has both 17 and 18 inside of him. Now, it probably could leave some people scratching their heads as to why that is, but it seems like what really happened is that this is part of Dr. Garo's grand plan from the beginning. It's almost as if he knew subconsciously that there was a high probability that 17 and 18 would betray him, which is what they did. It's almost like he was expecting it to happen, probably because unlike 16 and 19, who were programmable characters, 17 and 18 were originally humans, Lapis and Lazuli, as we found out later on by Toriyama, and they were independent sort of delinquents. So Dr. Garo knew they hated taking orders, and well, he died. 17 killed him. It happened, point blank. As far as that went, though, I've always felt like as he was working on enhancing 17 and 18's bodies, he was also working on Cell behind the scenes. It was almost sort of like a plan B or even a plan C. Obviously, plan A would have been 19 and 20, and then plan B would have been 17, 16, and 18 most likely, or maybe not even 16, depends on how you want to look at it, because the future timeline is different. And then we have, of course, plan C, which would have been Cell. Plan C for Cell. It kind of fits, right? But I also feel like he created Cell as sort of his way to get revenge on not just Son Goku, but also on 17 and 18, because he kind of knew it would happen. I've always felt this way. It is, of course, a theory, but it makes perfect sense because they are the key. That means that there has to be some kind of biomechanical genetic connection between Cell, 17, and 18, beyond just Cell having the powers of the Z Fighters and Frieza and King Cold. There is something special about this connection, and it has to be something that was created in the laboratory before 17 and 18 were finished, and even before Cell was finished. Oh, and I should add in real quick that 17 and 18 are still alive inside of Cell. They're still in there. It's just that they're in this weird sort of, I guess, suspended animation. They're kind of prisoners. They can't move, but they are alive and can hear and sense certain things even outside of Cell. So that makes it even more creepy when you think about it. Now, back to the video. When you really analyze it, Cell's power is without question out of this world, especially when he first appears. But it wouldn't really make too much logical sense that him absorbing 17 and 18 would make him so powerful. I mean, we see Vegeta just totally dominate second form Cell, and then once he absorbs 18, Vegeta loses to one elbow drop from Cell to the back of Vegeta's spine. So it's one of those things where why would it make any sense that Cell became that powerful? Where there has to be a connection where, sort of like what happened with Kami and Piccolo, it's not exactly the same, but follow me here. There's some kind of deeper connection between these characters to where it's almost as if Cell needed them in order to become his true self. Cell's entire purpose is to become perfect, and even using and having Goku and Vegeta's cells, which made him hungry for battle and hungry for power, it still became sort of like a, for lack of a better term, instinctual. Almost as if 17 and 18 were always meant to be part of Cell's perfect body. Even though that might not be directly stated, you have to read through the subtleties of Dragon Ball to kind of understand that that's the perspective. And it's even one that's discussed in the filler episode, Dragon Ball Z episode 90, where, well, most of the episode is filler, but there is some flashbacks discussing and sort of teasing what I'm talking about. This is not just something I pull out of thin air. It's there in the series. So absorbing 17 and 18 was not just about power for Cell. It was a duty he needed to do to become his true self. And then from there, after training and having battles with Goku and Gohan and obviously dying and coming back as Super Perfect Cell, he became stronger and stronger because not only did he have the perfect body, but he also had the cells of Goku and Vegeta and the others so that he could get stronger with training and, of course, stronger with dying, which is what he kind of sort of did, or coming near death when he became back a Super Perfect Cell. Now, in GT, notice that Cell absorbs Goku. Now, I know some of you guys are going to say, well, it's GT, it doesn't really count. But think about this. When he absorbs Goku, he senses an incredible leap in power, but he does not physically change. The only characters that physically changed Cell were 17 and 18 because they were part of who he was. Obviously, Cell's nucleus is the home base of all of his knowledge, which happens to be a combination of technology as well as actual cellular manipulation. But I also feel like it is this supercomputer, neural net learning computer, like Arnold said in Terminator 2, where it can learn and it can adapt. And because of that, that's why Cell was able to resume having his perfect body, with an upgrade, of course, when he blew himself up. That's why. And that's why when he's in Hell, even though it's only anime filler, it's not in the manga, we see him with his perfect body again and not the original version of Cell, because he learned to adapt, and that would sort of become who he was, his perfect form. With that being said, I will bring this technique guide to a close. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, next technique guide will be about Majin Buu's absorption. In the meantime, check out these videos.